Hello, YouTube! Megan Price here. Welcome back to WWIY. Women, what inspires you? Today, I have my first live episode. Yay, vaccines! Amanda Hooper!
Awesome.
Thanks for coming, Amanda.
Thank you for having me.
So, Amanda and I have been friends for 5 years now. We met through taking our paramedic training for BC Ambulance together, just noobs starting fresh off the street. So, today I'm super blessed to have her join on the channel and just to be here and share a little bit of her story. So, Amanda, why don't you tell us where you're from and what are some things that fulfill you in life?
Sure. So, born and raised in Calgary, Alberta. I moved out here about 7 years ago to pursue paramedicine. So a little bit before I met you.
Yeah.
I came out here to do my PCP in Kelowna and brought my now husband with me. So at the time we were just dating, but 12 years now we've been together. We also have a 2-year-old daughter who's her name is Violet.
Sassy.
Very sassy. And now I'm a paramedic in Armstrong and also an EMR educator in the interior. And those are really the things that fulfill me right there, are my family, my career, and ultimately education.
You heard it here, folks. Education. Amanda, you're such a badass, and this is why I asked you to be on here. I think many women can relate to having a successful career, a family, happily married, and you've had some big moves in life, but settled now. So
most of the time,
yeah. Who would you say your biggest inspiration is and why?
Yeah, so my biggest inspiration would have to be my mom, which does sound fairly cliche, right? We all seem to love to go to our parents, but
your mom is a badass, though.
My mom works in infection prevention and control. So with COVID, obviously, she has just been this unbelievable leader in healthcare. She's now the manager of long-term care. So watching her advocate for our elders, watching her help protect them has been extremely inspiring. Not only that, she went back at 50 to do another master's degree.
She education lady.
Yeah, she moved provinces and started with a different health region at the age of 45, right? The adversity that she went through has just been unbelievable. She had a 2-year-old when she was doing her med school. So thinking of myself and where she would be in med school she's very inspiring to me.
I could not imagine. I have only had the pleasure of meeting your mom, I think twice, but...
Yeah, I think you met her the first time we met. We all went for breakfast together.
Yes. Oh my gosh, your mom is so intelligent and pretty crazy to have a family and raise kids and go to med school and pursuing further education. It's just, I know where you get your drive from.
Thank you.
That is amazing. Well, we'll dive right in.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about a hardship that you faced in life and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so I think a big theme right now in the world is us identifying our trauma and identifying how we deal with our trauma. So for myself, I had a miscarriage, which was a little bit later in the game. So there was a little bit more attachment that happened. Not that, early miscarriages hurt less. However, working with an EMS at the same time as dealing with my own trauma, so trauma within trauma, really was definitely something that was very conflicting. And it was all about really advocating for myself and advocating for where I was at and understanding that you're allowed to feel things, you're allowed to talk to yourself about things and, what do you need at that moment, and understanding to remove yourself from your trauma. You can't necessarily deal with other people's trauma at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, especially in our jobs, because we are dealing with other people's traumas. Usually you don't call an ambulance if you're having a good day. And I think that it is so important too that we are easy and kind to ourselves when we're going through something. Admitting that when you need help or just like you said, being able to feel things is such a...
Yeah, and what do you need at that time? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to take acupuncture? Do you need to go see a counselor? Whatever that looks like is totally okay and where you should be.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point too, is everybody deals with things so differently. We all have ways that we can work things out in our head better. you know, like you said, there's counseling, sometimes just self-care for acupuncture, massage, like talking to a friend, going for coffee, just all these things that are now evolving as there's been so much talk about traumas. And I mean, yours is so traumatic, and I can't imagine going through that.
Well, being a woman in EMS has always been known as, you know, the old boy society, and we've always been told to kind of eat your feelings. And I'm slowly seeing that culture change. However, you know, when we do have something like a personal loss, so for me it was the miscarriage, we have to take that time, because I had to identify myself still as a paramedic, but I still needed to identify myself as a grieving woman. Yeah. And both identities were okay, but it was very hard to put together, and I felt very alone. Yeah. So when I did advocate for myself and did talk to people, and I was able to share my story, it felt less alone, and it brought more peace to me knowing that I wasn't in a place alone.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're so strong, Amanda. Just hearing you talk about that, and also relying, you know, on people. And I know you've had a lot of really difficult calls also through your career, just learning all these things at an early stage to be able to deal with them, and to now advocate, you know, for other women to be able to deal with this kind of stuff is truly inspiring and really important. So
thank you.
I'm glad that you know, made it through, because some of these situations that we find ourselves in, you know, can...
They're very challenging.
Yeah, very challenging.
And ultimately can take out our career when we deal at a trauma-based section of our life, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I'm glad that things are becoming easier to talk about. It's not just the, you know, rub some dirt in it, get back to work, the old boys club, don't talk about your feelings. Like, fuck that. Talk about your feelings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're important to just be able to get that stuff off your chest. Because if you can't help yourself, you can't help other people. And
very true. Yeah.
That's a really, really good thing. So, saying all that aside, what are some things that you do to stay inspired?
Absolutely. So staying inspired is, I think, a big challenge for anyone right now that's in the healthcare industry, and just even in our certain climate for everybody that's there. For myself, it's really been recent activity, right? Physical activity for myself. With the recent, you know, EMS burnout, that's all right systemically across the province. I'm sure everyone's heard about our BC Ambulance's new model that we've just put out. The burnout is real. So keeping myself active and allowing myself to have activity outside of work has been huge. Strong women around me is very, very inspiring. Yourself? We've got this beautiful ACP paramedic who I've literally watched go from being an EMR to ACP. You know, people like yourself, my mom. I have some just inspiring coworkers, you know, Corrine Wright, Joanne Hubbard. They've all been able to keep me moving forward. Yeah. The other thing is my family. The way that my family looks up to me and talks to me makes me want to keep going, makes me want to do those tough calls. My husband is a stay-at-home husband and supports me while I am able to go out, be a badass female and work. And, you know, every day when I come home and he tells me how proud he is of me. And, you know, my daughter gets so excited anytime she sees an ambulance, right? So those are really huge inspiratory factors for me, just to keep that spirit keep the spirit going.
Oh, I love it. And I mean, of course they're going to be proud of you. It's pretty incredible, all the connections that you've made, all the things you've achieved, the things you've accomplished. I mean, it is amazing to watch women that we have grown and been able to have the freedom to do so, where you're at the point you can have your hubby stay home and you're the badass that's going out and working, the breadwinner, you know. So I think that there needs to be, you know, even more of a push for there to be less of a label on women. We don't just need to stay at home and take care of the kids now, unless you want to. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, hugely. And it was what was better for our family. And with, you know, for my family, it was about taking those labels down. Yeah. And allowing parenthood to be fluid. It doesn't matter if it's female or male person caring for the child. It's that child is cared for in the best way.
Yeah, and I love that. One of my favorite things about you is that you are very forward thinking. You're very open-minded. There's been so many scenarios that you've helped me through, that is for sure. And look at it through a different light. So I think from meeting you, 5 years ago and watching the growth and the progression has been so amazing, and just how far you've gone in your career, and like you have this beautiful family now. So it's just pretty incredible that Amanda here is just slaying the expectations for women. And I think it's really cool that, you are paving the way. You are a badass woman. You're working, you're the breadwinner, and your hubby gets to stay home, and you don't have any limitations, and you still have a beautiful family, and you still are following all your career goals with new jobs and educating. So I think that is a badass thing in itself.
I'm very excited. Yeah.
All right. So last question for the day. What is some advice that you could give others who might be going through a bit of a hard time right now?
Absolutely. So where you came from is your story, and never be ashamed of it. It is a beautiful place. It is something that's very sacred to all of us. But when you're ready to move forward, no matter where you are, just take one step forward. Doesn't have to be big. Just take one step. And it's only when you're ready. It's not when Megan's ready. It's not when I'm ready. It's when you're ready. And continually look at your growth. Look at your journey. Look at where you've been, because then you will actually have measurable growth. And take a step. That's all you need to do.
I love that so much. Take a step. Just take one step. They talk about that all the time. It's not a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. That's the one. So if you just take one step, whether it's quitting smoking or maybe trying to get out of a bad situation. I know for me, I was in an abusive relationship for a long time, and no matter what people told me, like, you need to get out of this, you need to, change or whatever, I had to be the one to take that step. And so I love that advice, Amanda, that you said, because it's so true. It's just, one step at a time, no matter what your goal is, just that's how you achieve it.
And be proud of that one step. It might not be your entire way, but it's something.
Yeah, it's all you got to do is start. Love it. Well, thank you so much for the wonderful advice and for sharing some of your story on the channel. Yes. I love you, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime.